How's it going, guys? It's Haugh here with
Shayne Williamson.
And welcome back for this week's installment of Jay
and Shays
Sports for Dummies. Today we have a lot of interesting things to start off with and to cover, including news from the NFL to college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
With some shocking news, scores, games, and moments in this past week, the NFL did not disappoint. Our highlights are two very highs and lows, and that will be Lamar Jackson with Houston. And, wow, I don't even want to say this because I feel like everybody's been talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
We got a new little piece to it today, a new little shade to it. That's Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start on that positive note and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. Listen, I told you last week I felt like the Ravens went big against Houston, and they did indeed. Lamar Jackson continues his MVP push. Four touchdowns on the day. Just a dominant performance. And that defense, too, don't overlook them. They're rounding into form, and they shut down Deshaun Watson.
I mean, I think the most intriguing part wasn't Lamar Jackson's play. I think it's the defense.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was kind of ridiculous that Deshaun Watson couldn't get going. And I think it starts with your offensive line. And that's why I'm worried for them tonight against the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, on the season, 19 touchdowns through the year, 2,258 passing yards for a running back.
Not bad for a running back.
Yeah, not bad for a running back at all. Maybe an MVP. I think Lamar Jackson proved a lot of people, including me, wrong last week, that he has got a real shot at this. And I think Ingram's got something to say about it if you don't think he's the MVP.
Yeah, meet him outside the bank.
Now let's get to this negative light. And that would be Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph.
Just a bunch of nonsense. The game was already over. And you have a quarterback with his helmet off, and Myles Garrett with the quarterback's helmet hitting him with the helmet. And today he appealed his suspension, which is indefinite, at least through the end of this season, including the postseason. And he claimed that Mason Rudolph called him a racial slur during that whole interaction to try to get his suspension down.
And I think that's the sad part of it, because reports of Browns players saying they never heard that from Myles Garrett came out. And if there's one thing you got to have, it's the support of your teammates. And if you think that something's going wrong, who's the first person to have your back?
Your teammate, yep.
And that they didn't have his back right away.
Nope.
Kind of showed the situation's ugly head, and the fact that he was really trying to get out of this.
Yep.
And for somebody who's been mainly quiet and just plays his game, I never expected this out of Myles Garrett.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird twist for a normally calm player, but you know, football, heat of the moment, things happen. It's unfortunate that this happened, but he'll be out for a long time.
We won't see Myles Garrett for a long time.
Nope.
But we will see Mason Rudolph play this weekend.
We will.
Before we talk about that, let's get to our picks and our predictions. Let me give you a prediction record update. I am 26-16.
This is what I like to hear.
And Shay is 27-15.
Yeah.
And it was all dependent on Phillip Rivers' performance.
That's
my
lovely.
Goodness. And if you've ever seen the movie Bird Box, Phillip Rivers did an amazing job. I mean, he literally was throwing pick after pick after pick. It was bad.
Yeah, he had 2 opportunities down the stretch. Score a touchdown, you win the game, and he blew it 2 times.
I'm so disappointed in my guy, and I just don't know what to say. I thought that Phillip Rivers could pull it out. Now that we've told you our prediction record update, let's give myself a chance to come back Thursday night. Tonight in Houston.
Yep.
Texans are a 3-point favorite. Who you got? Houston, the Houston Texans, or the Indianapolis Colts?
I'm going to go with the Texans. Last week was Deshaun Watson's first time ever losing by double digits. I think he's raring to go and pick up a dub in front of his home crowd, and they get it done.
This one's hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look back at the previous score this year, the Colts handled the Texans.
They did indeed.
And Darius Leonard is no joke.
Mm-hmm.
I think tonight he's no joke.
Sure.
It's really hard to pick against Deshaun Watson here.
Mm-hmm.
But give me Jacoby Brissett and the Colts. 26-24.
Interesting.
And mind you, that's in Houston.
Yep.
Next, we're going to go to Sunday's 1 o'clock games. Dolphins-Browns. The Browns are the obvious favorite here by 11. Who you got?
Give me the Browns. They keep rolling with this week schedule they have, trying to get back into the playoff picture.
Yep, I got the Browns in an easy one, 38-14. Give me the Lions at the Redskins.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit's the favorite. Driscoll's still going to be in quarterback. I think this game is a little bit more interesting than people give it, but I have Detroit 26-21. What are your thoughts?
I think the Lions win big today. Or Sunday, and I think that Driscoll has impressed me in his first 2 weeks starting, and I think Dwayne Haskins hasn't shown me much of anything, and I think the Lions roll over him big.
The Raiders coming off of a non-reassuring win over Cincinnati, 17-10.
Yeah, they struggle.
Finley really had a chance at the end there. He threw a pick, and if he scores a touchdown, Lord knows where that game's going.
Right.
They are 3-point favorites against the Jets, and I think they deserve that 3-point margin. They haven't really earned the right to be like 6-point or 10-point favorites this year, and I think the Jets give them a war, but they come out on top 28-25.
I think the Raiders will. I don't think they're really good enough to like manhandle a team, even a team that's very manhandleable like the Jets. So I think I agree with you. It'll be a tough, ugly game, and I think the Raiders pull it out late.
Alrighty. Moving over to the Windy City. Giants at Bears. Bears are a 6-point favorite at home.
Yep.
I have Mitchell Trubisky playing good football in this game. And I know that's a rare statement out of me. You know I don't like Mitch Trubisky. But I have the Bears dropping 34 points in this game.
Oh, wow.
And the reason for that is they're going up against the Giants defense.
Yeah, that is true.
And I just can't see Mitch Trubisky losing this football game. You got to win it. You really do. And it's at home. This defense comes up big. My pick here says I have the Bears 34-30.
I picked the Bears, but for a completely different reason that you have. I think Mitch struggles again because he's just not a very good quarterback. But Daniel Jones, who is turnover prone, Khalil Mack finds his target multiple times, strips him at least once. Daniel throws 2 picks at least, and the Bears win by, let's say, 13.
You got to worry about Trevathan, too.
Yeah. He's a menace.
Heck of a 1-2 punch. And I never said those 34 points are going to be scored just by Mitch Trubisky.
True.
I did say they're going to score 34 points, though. I think they're going to get up there with points. Next game, Panthers at Saints. Saints are about a 10-point favorite. I put a lot of faith in Kyle Allen.
You did.
And I was wrong.
Yeah, he did not come through.
Sorry, buddy. I'm not going to do it again. Give me the Saints in a big win, 31-17 at home.
Yeah, I think the Saints, they learned their lesson on sleeping on an opponent, especially a divisional opponent. Came out, handled business versus Tampa Bay. They do the same thing here versus Carolina.
Seahawks at the Eagles. Battle of the Birds. Eagles are a 1.5-point favorite.
That blows my mind.
I think it's because they're at home
at
that point. I don't see these teams as an even matchup. And I think what it's coming off of is this Patriots game and how close it was. But I think the Patriots can play a close game with anybody at this point. I don't see them dominating a team like they did week 1. That being said, they probably come out and dominate somebody recently. Knowing myself, I say something and the exact opposite happens sometimes. But I'm going to take the Seahawks in this one by 1. So it's 24-23. It's going to all land on your kicker again, and he's going to come up big.
Right.
Jason Myers, I believe.
Yeah.
And I don't see the Eagles pulling this one out. I just can't see it happening. I think the Eagles have an off year after this loss. You got to accept your fate and move forward.
I think the Eagles, it's a lost season. Injuries have screwed them over for the second straight year. You have a lot more faith in them in this game than I do. I think Tom Brady could have made that game big last week, and I think Russell Wilson doesn't miss the passes that Tom Brady did, and they win big.
All right, and let's go quick with these games because they're pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
Buccaneers, Falcons. Give me the Falcons, 24-20.
Yeah, Falcons keep rolling.
Broncos, Bills. I have the Bills by 3.
Yeah, Josh Allen can beat the Broncos, whatever.
Battle of the Allens.
Mm-hmm.
Steelers at the Bengals. This is my upset pick of the week. No Marquise Pouncey, no Juju, no Connor, no Deontay Johnson,
Right.
no solutions.
Mm-hmm.
This Bengals defense did not look like pushovers last week.
Nope.
I think they pull out the win at home. I think it's close by 1 point, 21-20.
You're very optimistic. I think the Steelers go in and win.
Alrighty.
Their weapons are gone, but I think they do enough to bring the victory home.
Jaguars at the Titans. We're getting to your 4:05 game.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the Titans in this one. 31-21 because we put a lot of faith in Foles and we saw how that turned out.
Yeah.
I don't think Foles is a real quarterback right now. He's got to prove it to me again. And it's sad that a Super Bowl MVP has to do that. But I think for me, he's proven himself to be a number 2 again.
Yeah, he definitely had a rough first game back. But I think he bounces back and they beat the Titans this week.
Cowboys in New England, 4:25 on Sunday. Who you got and why? I have the Patriots, 23-17.
Mm-hmm. This is my upset of the week. I have the Cowboys going into New England and beating them because the Patriots offense doesn't inspire much confidence from me. Dak Prescott has been overshadowed a lot by Russell and Lamar, but he's been just as good as the both of them this year. And I think if they have a chance, he airs it out and they beat the Patriots by 3.
Sunday Night Football in San Fran. They're used to the spotlight now, and if you're not, you better get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
They have no update on whether Kittle's playing.
Nope.
Packers, 49ers, big football game.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is huge when it comes to the playoff picture. I debated this one for a long time. I expect it to be a gun show between the two quarterbacks, and I'm going to pick a Super Bowl MVP any day of the week before I pick Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right.
So I'm going to get the Packers winning this one 34-33.
Yeah. Give me Green Bay as well. 49ers, we're about to find out if they're real because they played 3 8-2 opponents in a row. And I think they start off that stretch with a loss.
Yep. Ravens at Rams, Monday Night Football. Jalen Ramsey will not crack the code. The Ravens don't steamroll them. They win by 7 in Baltimore, 24-17.
I disagree. They do steamroll them. They win big. Lamar Jackson, another big day.
Well, that's going to just about do it for the NFL. And now we're going to move on to NBA Basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to hit you with something that I never thought I would say again.
Right.
And be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Melo's back in the National Basketball Association.
Melo, what's up, boy?
He went 4 for 14 in his debut.
Yeah, it sounds about right for what he's been doing for the past few years. But I will cut him some slack. It's been a year since he's played professional basketball. It's no walk in the park, even for someone with as much longevity as Melo has had. I will give him a couple weeks of grace before I really start judging him, but it was definitely not the best debut for him. LeBron, my best player in the league, first player to have triple-double against all 30 teams after he recorded a triple-double in his most recent game. I mean, what else can you say about the guy? He has been dominant for 17 years now. The Lakers at the top of the conference, sitting pretty. They're playing great defense, great offense. He's been the primary ball handler all year. Hasn't shown signs of slowing down on either side of the ball. The king does king things when the king decides to turn it on. And this year, he's been turning it on all year long for every single game.
And I think that's due to his counterpart a little bit.
Sure.
And I don't know what to say to you. I think Anthony Davis elevates LeBron James' game, and people don't understand that. People think LeBron James elevates Anthony Davis's game.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they can be vice versa, but I think without Anthony Davis, you see the LeBron we saw last year. And there's nothing wrong with the LeBron we saw last year, but he's not the LeBron we see this year.
Right.
And I think giving them a talented, athletic center like that it's a cheat code, to be honest with you. So, LeBron, congratulations. You're doing something that not a lot of people have ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to power rankings now.
Yep.
And we're going to go to my top, I believe, 3 teams.
Per conference.
In the Eastern Conference first.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be the Bucks right away for me in the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
Giannis is averaging over 30 a game. And Middleton has been playing well. I don't see this team slowing down. They're playing solid team basketball. And other than Giannis, I think this team can survive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't see them as the top team they are now, but they have a good supporting cast, which a lot of teams don't in the league. And then I'm going to follow that up by the Celtics as well as the Heat. The Heat has surprised a lot of people with some young talent, and I'd love to see that continue going forward. My team to watch is the 76ers.
Yeah.
I know it's your favorite team, Shayne.
Yeah. We've been struggling.
They have been struggling, and I think there's reasons for it. I think you got to get farther down in the season for this team to click.
Yeah.
And I think you got to give them time.
Yeah.
And I think they're my team to watch because now they're sleepers. Now you're not looking at them. And the moment you don't look at them is the moment they're going to strike.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you give Joel Embiid a little bit of time, he's a sleeping monster.
Yeah.
My Western Conference teams are pretty cut and dry right now.
Yep.
Top team, Lakers. Best duo in the league.
Of course.
Second best team, the Rockets.
Mm.
And the reason for that is Harden's playing at an MVP clip.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people expected that with Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers he's been putting up all season are ridiculous. He is 40 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah. And
Name one other player in the NBA who averages 40 points a game.
You can't. You can't.
I mean, it's cut and dry. He's your MVP right now.
He gets buckets, and everyone always wants to talk about, the free throws, the free throws, the free throws, the free throws. Even if you take away every single free throw he's taken this year, he's still leading the league in scoring by 2.5 points per game. He is something, dare I say, we have not seen before. Just the way that he puts up shots, and they drop, and he averages 40 a night, and that goes along with 6 boards and 8 assists. There's not a lot of guys just creating offense like that.
My last team in the Western Conference, and I hear you about Harden. I love Harden.
Yep.
But my third team in the Western Conference is the Clippers.
Mm-hmm. Paul George is back.
Paul George's ankles aren't back.
Jason Tatum put that boy in a blender.
Oh, my goodness. I think that the Clippers have a lot of talent. They need to play together, just like the 76ers. Kawhi can win games on his own. He proved that with the Raptors. And that is not a discredit to Siakam, Van Vliet, or Lowry. But without Kawhi, they do not win a title.
Right.
My team to watch in the Western Conference is the Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful, man. Mike Conley is a beast.
Right.
And
he's starting to get it together.
Yep. And I think this team's going to bring back those classic uniforms and play like some classic Jazz teams. Let's kick it over to you, Shay. Your best Eastern and Western Conference teams.
Yeah, at the moment, my top 3, this may come as a shock to people, but the Sixers are not present. The Celtics are my number 1 team so far. They've only lost 3 times this year, only 2 times since they lost their very first game to Philly. They just swapping Kemba for Kyrie. It looks like they're having fun playing basketball again, getting shots up, making shots, moving the ball around. It looks fantastic. The Bucks, Giannis, what more can you say? Defending MVP, just a dog. And even with Chris Middleton being out for a few weeks, it's been the same thing as last year. Raptors, even without Kawhi, Siakam's taking that next step. He's in my top 5 MVP candidates at the moment, and they're also my team to watch to see if they can keep that going without Kawhi Leonard. And in the West, it's the same thing as you. Lakers at top, but I just swapped the Clippers and Rockets. Clippers are my number 2. Rockets are my number 3. And my team to watch, the Mavericks. Luka Doncic has been lighting it up. He's almost averaging a triple-double at only 20 years old.
That's my man right there, Luka.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's killing it out there. So that's what we have on tap for the NBA tonight.
Yep.
We'll keep you updated on the next Jay and Shay. But I'd love to get something that's been extremely compelling throughout the entire season. Got some interesting storylines. Got some sad storylines. NCAA football.
Yep.
Number 9, Penn State, goes to Columbus and plays number 2 Ohio State.
Right.
This is the most intriguing game I've seen all season, other than Joe Burrow beating to it. Nothing's going to beat that game this year, unless it's the national championship game.
Yeah.
Who you got?
Give me Ohio State. I don't think Penn State's real. Not only did they lose to Minnesota, but they then followed it up this week with another lackluster performance. And I think Ohio State is the second best team in the country, and they'll play like the second best team in the country at home and blow out Penn State.
I think the Buckeyes smack the Nittany Lions in the horseshoe. I think this is a handily easy game for the Buckeyes.
Yep.
And people are like, really? Well, look at their ranked opponents when they play them.
Mm-hmm.
They're either now in the teens or not ranked anymore.
Right.
And who starts that slip?
Ohio
the Buckeyes.
State. Every time.
Every single time. Good luck, Nittany Lions.
Mm-hmm. You'll need it.
24, Texas A&M versus 4, Georgia in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge game for Georgia. You can't lose this game. You want to go to the SEC championship, you can't lose this ball game.
Mm-hmm.
Who you got and why?
Give me Georgia, but I don't say that with any sort of confidence because that offense is terrible. They're stuck in the 1980s for whatever reason. Every time that they allow Jake Fromm to go down the field, first half versus Alabama in the national championship, first half of the SEC championship versus Alabama last year, when they were letting him go downfield, he does it well. But they always seem to go back to under center, hand off for the first 2 downs, and throw a screen on 3rd down. What is that? I think that'll be enough to beat Texas A&M just because they have more talented athletes than they do. But going in the future, I'm not very confident in this Georgia team.
I don't think Georgia makes the playoffs.
Me neither.
Because they have to play in the FCC championship game.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not see them beating Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I think he lights them up.
I think they win this football game, though. And I think they can handle Texas A&M in this game. But with the 4 we have now, just say you end up with LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia in the game in the playoff picture.
Mm-hmm.
And this could, I guess, happen with Tua's injury.
Right.
But I think you're looking at teams that are right outside, like Oregon, looking at a shot to get in.
Right.
And they need Georgia to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they will. Because if LSU loses, that changes nothing.
Yeah.
Right now, if your top 4 had to play each other, rematch of the SEC championship game. We don't know who would have won it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say LSU won that football game.
Right.
LSU, Georgia. Who wins?
They beat them by even more. If they win the first time and they play them again, now that Joe Burrow knows what to see, I think he lights them up even more.
I think it's a close game.
Mm.
And LSU wins that football game.
Right.
Ohio State, Clemson, Trevor Lawrence is seeing ghosts against this defense. I think that Chase Young gets him a couple times, and the Buckeyes make it to the national title game. What are your thoughts?
If you have listened to our previous episodes, you know how I feel about the Clemson Tigers. They're still the best team in the country as it stands right now. They've been the most dominant week in and week out. Sans the North Carolina game. If you take that out the schedule, they've been the most dominant team in the country by far. And I think that they would beat Ohio State by 14 points.
National championship game, mine would be Ohio State LSU, and I have Justin Fields winning a national championship. And the reason for that is we're not focused on Justin Fields.
Nope.
The Big Ten has defense, and that is something gritty and awesome about that entire conference. And LSU and the SEC has defense, and they're gritty, and they're strong. Ohio State's defense is better than LSU's defense.
It is.
Good luck if you have to throw the football against the Buckeyes. I don't think Joe Burrow has a bad football game.
Right.
I think Justin Fields and Mike Weber and Chris Olave, have a better football game.
Right.
And beat LSU by a touchdown.
Right.
And win a national title.
I think in my matchup, which would be LSU versus Clemson, I think this would be the best game we've seen in a while. But it's something about those Tigers, man. And by the Tigers, I mean the ones in Death Valley. And by the ones in Death Valley, I mean the one in South Carolina, not Louisiana, which would be Clemson. And I think they have experience on that stage that no one on LSU has. They literally just won it last year in dominant fashion. I don't think they blow out LSU like they blew out Alabama last year, but I think they do win in a very close game.
All right, that's his picks. We can't argue with it.
Mm-hmm.
We can't predict the future.
Nope.
But we're going to try.
Yeah.
Now moving from college football over to college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at just the top tier of college basketball. Just like we did for NCAA football, let's look at the top tier for basketball. And as we were talking before the podcast, you said there's 2 different tiers. And Duke, UNC, and Louisville are in a league of their own right now.
Yeah, all ACC.
The second tier would be Virginia, Maryland, and Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Maryland ends up on top of that second tier.
Right.
And they're kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the number one for me is nobody.
Yeah.
As you said before we hopped on the podcast, and it was a very interesting point, is that none of these teams are really better than one another. When you look at UNC, Duke, and Louisville, and the reason we don't know that is because they haven't played each other yet.
Right.
And I think once we have that information, you'll have a clear number one.
Mm-hmm.
But who do you got at number one?
Yeah, I had the same point as you, obviously, but if I had to choose today, it would be Louisville. They have perhaps the best player in the country in Jordan Nora, and they've been the most dominant team thus far. Duke has played a couple opponents that they really shouldn't have close. Kentucky has lost to a bad team. North Carolina played Elon close yesterday. That team's 2-3. So I think Duke and UNC have shown little blips in the radar that maybe it's a little cause for concern that Louisville just hasn't yet. But they'll have their time to kind of prove their status at number one when they play Michigan, Texas Tech, Duke in all like a 3-week span.
One thing I want to point out is Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Last year you had RJ and you had Zion. There's not a 20-point scorer on this team.
Nah.
And Trey Jones is your leading scorer.
That's a problem.
Cassius Stanley has got to play better basketball.
Mm-hmm.
13 points a game is not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
You are a 5-star recruit. I want you to prove it to me.
Right.
So is Zion. He might have been a 6-star if you could make a 6-star.
Right.
But I think Duke has got to prove not only to me but to a lot of different teams that they're real.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they have yet.
Nope.
I think they've eked out some wins just by not luck, but coaching.
Yeah, and talent.
But I don't see them right now at the top of everything. And then Cole Anthony.
Yeah.
If you look at the Tar Heels, they
boy.
do have a 20-point-a-game scorer.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be Cole Anthony. He averages 23 points a game. His field goal percentage is 38%. I think he is legit.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever wanted anybody who is NBA ready, look at Cole Anthony.
Yep.
I look at him going towards the future and definitely dominating in the NBA if he can keep this up. One thing about college basketball is there has to be momentum. And if you don't have momentum, you can't move forward. Right now, the Tar Heels and Cole Anthony definitely have momentum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cole Anthony is college basketball's version of a walking triple-double. That 38% field goal percentage will even itself out as the season goes on. He'll obviously regress back to the mean of like 45%. But yeah, 23 points go along with 8 rebounds and 5 assists per game. He's the total package at point guard for the Heels.
So now we're going to move on. And we're going to talk about James Wiseman. I'm going to let you take this one away because you have a lot of brash thoughts on this. Go ahead and give me what you're thinking about James Wiseman.
Yeah, this situation is really stupid. Last week I expressed my thoughts on I think the NCAA is valid in suspending him because Penny Hardaway just flat out moving him to Memphis while he's in high school. That's problematic. However, and I'm okay with them suspending him for 12 games. That's not a problem. In fact, I thought it would be more. I didn't think we would see him again this year. So the fact that it's only 12, he'll be back in January, that makes me happy. But he has to donate $11,000 and $11,500 to a charity of his choice. This is a college basketball player.
This is a bear trap if I've ever seen it. It's like, here, stick your foot in this.
Right.
And I'm going to clamp it on you.
I've never seen anything like...
And he's not going to be allowed to play if he doesn't pay it.
Exactly.
And I think that's ridiculous. So if a player has to move there in high school to get acclimated, and he doesn't have a lot of money, and he's playing basketball, and you're like, oh, he's a 5-star recruit, this best player, and he's supposed to be a top draft pick. They don't have money yet.
Right.
$11,000 is a penny to LeBron James.
Right.
James Wiseman hasn't been paid yet.
Nope.
And he can't be yet.
Mm-hmm.
They're working on things with the NCAA.
Right.
But James Wiseman needs those things to happen in 12 games, and I don't think they will. I don't know where he gets this $11,000 from.
Yeah, I think he's about to get a lot of very generous donations for some Memphis boosters.
Alumni.
Yeah, because $11,500 from someone who doesn't get paid. How is that even legal? You're taking an amateur athlete who has no source of income. He literally cannot have a source of income because of the NCAA has to pay $11,000 to play basketball, to play amateur basketball.
I don't know. I just don't think it's good policy by the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
We hate to end on a sour note.
Yeah.
And that's all we have for NCAA basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not. What's next week, Shayne? Thanksgiving is next week. Come on, Shayne.
Exciting. Yeah, I forgot.
You go.
Yeah.
You never had a good plate at Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I have.
Nice turkey, some stuffing, some gravy, some green beans.
I apologize about that. School's been on my head. My schedule's everywhere.
We have a bracket challenge coming up that we're going to upload for you on Thanksgiving. So while you're sitting at your dinner table, instead of playing some Christmas tunes, turn on some Jay and Shay and enjoy our lovely voices over top of some nice family banter.
Exactly.
We're going to do the bracket challenge for the NFL. So we're going to pick up some division winners, some conference winners, and then your Super Bowl champion and why. And I'd love for you guys to tune in for that. But that's all we have for Jay and Shay this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Jacob Haugh.
And I'm Shayne Williamson.
And you guys just listened to Jay
and Shays Sports for Dummies.